Hey, I'm Pete Holman with PH1Performance.com, and I hope you enjoy listening to the SME Stories podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the SME Stories podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the show. We got a great episode today with Pete Holman. Now, Pete Holman is the owner of GolfForever. We're going to go into that product a little bit later on, but just a little bit of background about Pete. Pete is a physical therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, former United States national taekwondo champion, and team captain at fitness product inventor, including the TRX Rip Trainer, the Nautilus Glute Drive, and the GolfForever Swing Trainer. He is now a lead trainer, content provider, consultant, and subject matter expert for GolfForever, and enjoys traveling the world, educating the golf community in the importance of physical fitness for performance, durability, and longevity. So I actually met Pete through the Canadian Fitness trade show that happened back in, I believe, late August, early September. So I got to talking to Pete. I thought he had a great story, and that's where we are today. So yeah, that's how we met, and I think you're going to have a great time on this episode. So sit back and absorb. All right, guys, we have Pete Holman from GolfForever. Pete, how you doing, my friend?
Fantastic.
Yeah, so thanks for coming in. I know we're recording on, let's say, what is it, September right now? So the weather's starting to get a little bit chillier outside. So how is it in Colorado?
It's beautiful. I just played an executive course yesterday, only 9 holes, but man, it was just perfect weather, maybe in the mid 70s and low sun and just beautiful day. So I'm loving it. Colorado, you got to get your golf in Colorado. I'm sure Canada's the same way. Like if you don't get it now, you're 6 weeks from now, we're in trouble.
Oh boy. Hold on. Let me get my Canadian to American Fahrenheit to Celsius calculator here. So you said it was in the 70s. It would have been 21 degrees. Okay. That's definitely a nice weather here. And because right now we're in the I think 16 degrees Celsius here, so that would be 62. That's how it is right now in Ajax, Ontario, which is east of Toronto. So it's not too bad actually, but yeah, golfing is not too bad right here. I know everyone's trying to stretch it out for as long as we can, but I think we had a previous conversation. I got into golf. I took a 20-year retirement from golf when I was 22, and then maybe when I was 20, and then when the pandemic hit, that's when I started to get back into golf again because you couldn't really do much, right? And that's when I was actually not that bad at golf. And then the wintertime hit of 2020, and then I haven't picked up a golf club since. So, mini golf
time,
maybe. But God forbid if we get another pandemic, then then we'll have to see. Then I'll maybe get back into golf again. But no, glad for you to join us here, and so let's get to it. So. All right, Pete Holman, GolfForever. What's your story?
Well, I'm a physical therapist and strength coach. That's what my clinical background and training is in. And I, in the physical therapy clinic, maybe my 4th year of practice, I was frustrated with some of our gym equipment in the physical therapy clinic. There was stuff strewn all over, the medicine balls and the foam rollers and the mats and the stretchy cords. And I thought, man, there's got to be a better way to organize this stuff. And I created my first ever product in the fitness space called the Functional Training Rack. And it got kind of a bug lit in me to start creating and innovating and designing fitness products and goods. So I went on to create something called the Ripcore FX, which turned into the TRX Rip Trainer, which is a rotational training device. It's now called the GolfForever Swing Trainer. I finally found the sweet spot because I was focused on marketing to every sport. And what I realized is golfers really have an understanding of rotational dynamics, coiled energy, core strength. They're interested in preserving their backs and having good spine health. And so we kind of landed on that kind of niche of golfing. But I've done other products for glute training. I've got the Nautilus Glute Drive. I've done a loaded carry machine called the Escape Barrel. And I'm working on 2 more products. But it's a great story. And I tell this to a lot of folks in the fitness industry, although it's not fitness exclusive. But you don't have to have a business degree from Columbia or an MBA from Stanford, or Yale, whatever. You can be just just a hardworking professional. And if you have the drive and the willpower and the curiosity to create and innovate, you can do it. Now, it wasn't easy. There's a long road to, there's a long learning curve, but now I'm kind of in my rhythm and I know how to do it. And I'm excited to launch 2 more products in 2024.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you said you've already listed off a few of those products already, so then you're kind of growing then. So how big is your organization right now? Are you still a solopreneur, or do you have like a good team behind you?
Well, yes and no. I'm a solopreneur because primarily I license my products. So, for instance, this product, the swing trainer, I licensed to GolfForever. My previous products, the Nautilus glue drive, I licensed to Nautilus. That's a big brand in strength and conditioning. The Escape barrel, I licensed to Escape. My next 2 products I'm going to do on my own. I've got a partnership that I've created. After years in the industry, I've met some mechanical engineers that have a fulfillment center in Minnesota, and they're designers, and they have a relationship with a company in Shanghai that does manufacturing. And so it's just a tremendous partnership with these guys. They're called Heavy Metal Barbell, but they do a lot of different stuff, and they're doing some great stuff in the industry, but it's for smaller individuals like myself. And so one of the challenges I've had with licensing products, not so much with GolfForever, but other products, is you relinquish all your control. And once you don't have control, you can't make, suggestions about marketing. You can't make suggestions about trade show presence.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you about that, in terms of, because maybe we were going to do that from Tips from the Pro segment here, about when you talk about licensing, what are the things, an inventor like yourself or anyone who's trying to get into that space to say, oh, should we think about licensing? Should we consider that? And you're kind of telling us that there's a little bit of a challenge to that if you decide to license it out.
Yeah. Well, there's challenges both ways, right? In fact, I got an email this morning on LinkedIn. A guy's got a product in the martial arts, the mixed martial arts space, and he wants to consult. And so usually what I typically do is I send back this email. It's kind of like a nuclear email, basically like, all right, do you have intellectual property? Do you have a patent? Do you have like a fulfillment center, a 3PL? Do you have a manufacturer that's producing the product? What are the cost of goods? I mean, it's this litany of questions. How much money do you have invested to put forth towards this project and this endeavor? Do you have a website built out? Do you have content? How are you going to create all this stuff? So there's probably 20 questions that I have. And then if the person looks at that and freaks out, then I know, hey, they're not ready for this venture. You've got to have rhino skin to be an entrepreneur, especially if you're kind of flying solo. But if they answer most of the questions and they still have enthusiasm, then I'll talk to them about what to do. And yes, at some point you get to the spot where you're considering a licensing model. One of the most important impacts of licensing or not is if you have intellectual property. If you don't have a patent, they're going to beat you up on the royalties or whatever deal you sign because you don't have any protection. They could say, well, to be honest, we could probably just rip you off or get around this patent if it's weak or if it hasn't been granted. So if you have a patent, ideally, you're in a much better position. The challenge is it takes 2.5, 3 years to get a patent. So what are you going to sit and wait on your idea that you're so excited about for 3 years? Which, by the way, one of my next products is going to launch. It's the first product I'll launch that'll actually have a patent on because COVID derailed my manufacturing timeline and the prototyping timeline. And in a way, it might have helped me out because now I'll have a patent prior to launching, which is kind of cool. So a patent is a huge consideration. Your bandwidth. I mean, if you think about running a business, let's just start with the basic stuff. If it's a product liability insurance, you got to have a website. Well, if you have a website, you have to have content to populate the website. And I don't just mean a sizzle video of different lengths, but you got to have lifestyle images that represent and bring your product to life. You got to have product images that show the product in a certain light and talk about the specifications, the dimensions, etc. And all this stuff takes time and energy and effort. You got to have a social media presence, right? You have to have a fulfillment center. Now, that's not too hard. Your website has to have some kind of Shopify integration or some kind of sales platform.
Some type of e-commerce,
e-commerce to track all your stuff. and then you have to have campaigns, right? It's Black Friday, or I don't know what your big campaigns are in Canada, but around America, we have big sales around 4th of July and Labor Day and heading into Thanksgiving and the holidays. And so you have to have somebody, and it's usually you, managing all these campaigns and creating new content and getting new sizzle stuff out there. And on top of that, you have to buy a bunch of inventory if it is a physical good. So you have inventory in stock. That takes a lot of capital up front. Then you have to manage the inventory, and then you have to repurchase inventory to make sure you have stock when you have these amazing e-commerce campaigns that, crush it. And then this cycle just kind of keeps going until you either have an exit, you sell to a larger company or somebody that's interested, or you get partnership. So those are the downsides of running it on your own. The upside of a licensor is you just hand it off to them and you sit back and you collect a royalty. Now, sometimes that works out. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they say, we said we're going to give you a 5% royalty, but gosh, we changed our minds and it's 3% or 2%.
Is there a good range of a royalty that someone should expect? Like, what's a good one? What's a bad one? Because I think for most people, they don't have no clue about this stuff because you've been doing this a while, so
I do.
What would your recommendation be?
So a very typical, now this is in the fitness industry, but it is fairly common across niches. A fairly common royalty rate is around 5%. Now, that could be 3.5% if it's something that's doing tons of volume. It could be 6.5%, 7% if it's something that maybe doesn't have as much volume, or maybe you have stronger intellectual property on it. If you have a patent, you might be able to push double digits depending on what it is. I'm sure there's some, research scientists that have created some new pharmaceutical or some IT type thing that they can get stronger royalties. But typically 5%, anywhere in that ballpark is good. By the way, if it's a book deal, drop that way down. I mean, I think book deals get less than a percentage point. But the idea is hopefully you're selling 1 million books, so even 10 cents or, whatever on the book, you're making money. So, 5% is pretty common. And yeah, but once the licensor gives you a hard time about the contract, what are you going to do? You're going to hire an attorney for $600 an hour to go to court and fight this battle, which could take months and cost you 6 figures, or you just take it on the chin. And to be honest, that's happened more than once to me. And it's probably one of the reasons I'm now going to not license, but to actually launch stuff on my own. The challenge is I had to learn all this stuff over the last, let's call it 15 years, to get myself up to speed to be able to run a product on my own and find the right partnership. So, but long story short, none of this stuff is easy. As anybody that's ever tried to be an entrepreneur, I don't care if you're opening up a donut shop or coffee shop, or if you're launching a product, or if you're writing a book, or if you're promoting yourself as a motivational speaker, it is a tough road, but it's also very rewarding. And it's, you are your own boss, and it's, anything in my life that I've ever achieved that came at great sacrifice, that's when I got the best benefit out of it. That's when I felt the best, the most empowered. If you win the lotto, that doesn't boost your ego. That doesn't help create character. It's just, you got lucky, and everybody knows that, including yourself. If you've built a business from the ground up and you've had adversity, and maybe you shut down during COVID, and then you reopened and you retweaked your marketing and your branding, and you hired new staff because you weren't satisfied with the old staff, and you worked 12, 14-hour days, and now all of a sudden your business is humming. I mean, that's something to hang your hat on.
Yeah, no, it's a sense of accomplishment, right? So for those listeners there, Pete is available for motivational speed booking. So if you want him to speak for yourself, reach out to him. Because you just rattled off a bunch of things. You answered some questions before I even had a chance to ask them, right? So that's really nice to hear. So, all right. So now take a break. Well, I'm going to ask you the next question here. So you said you're kind of like a solopreneur, but you're also licensing it out and all that sort of stuff. So, but where do you see your company going over the next 5 years or so? Like, do you physically see yourself, do you have a physical location right now? Or are you still operating out of a home office, or, are you looking to actually build an internal team as well to actually expand those?
Yeah, what's wonderful now, granted, this has taken me 15 years, but I have developed a partnership with this group in Minnesota. Um, and they're fairly centrally located in the United States and actually close to Canada, if you know your geography. And they are a tremendous partnership. They're mechanical engineers. It's a family run business. I've traveled out there. I stay at the guy's house. I mean, I have dinner with his wife and his kids, and we've developed a tremendous relationship, which is one of the most important things when you're talking about business and partnerships. Like if you don't have somebody that you see eye to eye with, that pushes you, that you kind of have a healthy competition with, that you can trust and respect, you're not in bed with the right partner, right? And that goes for any relationship, not just business, just interpersonal relationships. You want a dog, that's going to fight with you and that you can go to battle with. Um, so I've got this group now, and so I started with one product with them, and we're basically equal partners. They have their skill set, and I have mine. Once they develop prototypes and send them to Asia and get prototypes back and retweak the CAD design, the computer aided design and graphic component, and we go to production and we do tooling and we do all this stuff, we're kind of equal partners. That's a lot of time and effort and energy by the mechanical engineer team. And it's a lot of liaison time between them and the Chinese factory. I don't have to do any of that. They have a shipping and fulfillment center in Minnesota. So they'll box the products, they'll ship them out. I don't have to do any of that. Now, that's their sweet spot. My sweet spot is I'm on social media. I go to the trade shows. I speak internationally at health and fitness and wellness events. And so I have to kind of be the face of the products. I have to create content. I have to create social media. And I have to create a buzz and actually go into physical sports and performance centers and physiotherapy clinics and sell the product and create a buzz. So that's my sweet spot. And also I have to come up with the ideas. I mean, the vision is arguably the hardest. Like if you don't have a vision of an innovation, you're sunk before you even start. So, they're equally important. So in 5 years, I'm hoping that this group I'm working with continues to produce for me and we continue to develop and grow our relationship, because now I can just bring them a product. I know somebody's going to be able to design it on a computer, going to get samples from Asia. We're going to be able to watch and quality and control from Asia and go right into manufacturing. And they have some website support that we can access. And so, I'm into partnership. I don't like doing things all by myself. And if you talk to any great business leader, Richard Branson comes to mind. He delegates, he has partners. He says, I want to be the dumbest guy in the room, literally. And I want to have all the my Praetorian Guard out there, propagating my message and my vision, for me or with me.
No, that's pretty cool, actually. But yeah, because I think like most entrepreneurs, they really feel like they have to do everything, which is very challenging, right? Because you can only juggle so many things at once to the best quality that you can, right? So either one, they don't have the money to partner with somebody, or because they feel that they have to outsource it, or two, maybe they just have trust issues that whether they bring in somebody or work with somebody, will that person do it to the quality that I would personally do it? So I think there's that little bit of a trade-off that they have to figure out. But at the end of the day, if you're just by yourself, you can only go as far as you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I will say I'm a big believer in the Ritz-Carlton method. I don't know if your audience has read a book called Excellence Wins. It's by Horst Schulze, who's the founder and CEO of Ritz-Carlton. But if you work at Ritz-Carlton, you start out as a bellhop, right? Or a valet, right? And then you go to the housekeeping department. Then you're in the food services. Then you're in at the front desk, and then you're concierge. And you touch the maintenance department. You touch every aspect of that business so that you understand how it works. You can talk the talk. You can build rapport with every department. It's not until that point that you are ready for some kind of executive management position, once you've known all the different components. And I think an entrepreneur is kind of the same. I'm not saying it's good to delegate, but you do kind of have to get your feet wet and understand. I mean, I started out my first product, I mean, I had no clue what I was doing. And I went to a mechanical engineer and I just had a drawing on a napkin.
A doodle. Yeah.
It was a doodle. And so, but that was the start. And I learned about manufacturing. And then I was kitting the products, which means you kind of put it together in a box and then you ship it out. And had I not done that, I wouldn't have realized how important the shipping is. There's something called dimensional weight. And so if you ship something from UPS, most people have no clue what this means. But if you ship something from UPS, there's dimensions that fit into an algorithm. So yeah, if you ship a 100-pound dumbbell, everybody knows that's going to be very expensive. But you might ship something that's only 8 pounds, but it's, 5 feet long and 2.5 feet in width. Well, all of a sudden that dimensional weight, it could cost $150 to ship an 8-pound product. So you got to understand that because, $150 shipping on potentially $150 product, you're sunk before you even start. So you got to learn all these, building blocks to business. And once you know that and at least dabble in that, then you can start to delegate and build a team.
Yeah, no, I totally relate to that because the dimensional weight you're talking about, I used to sell car cleaning or car detailing products online before. And I would sell like a bottle of, like a $10 bottle for, let's say, wax or some type of polish. But then it would cost another $10 to ship it. And it's only like 16 ounces. It's not even big, right? But it's like double the cost. It's like, wow. And now you're talking about the products that you're focused on, which are a little bit bigger, but not like bigger, but also it could be like very long, like you said, the golf swing training aid that you're talking about. Or I can't imagine how much the Nautilus sold because that glute, what do you call it? The glute drive.
Glute drive, yeah.
Yeah, that's looks pretty big. So, that's really cool to know. So like for a lot of people then, so what would be like your biggest expense that you actually start off with when you tried to get into this game of the fitness accessories, fitness equipment area?
I mean, this is not going to come as a shock or surprise to most people listening, but one of my largest expenses and one of the most painful expenses is my legal expense. So when I'm creating a new product, there's, I always want some kind of intellectual property rights to that product because if you have a patent, it makes your product much more licensable. Or if you're going to launch it on your own, you're going to have some protection over people copycatting you. By the way, this happens in every industry and it is prolific. I mean, there's actually guys, if you go to a fitness trade show, you'll have a booth and let's say you've got some great new innovative product and you'll have a lot of customers come in and genuinely be interested in that. Maybe they're gym owners from, Good Life Fitness or whatever the company is. However, you're also going to have a bunch of people and oftentimes they're Asian manufacturers that are literally asking you about the product, taking pictures, asking you about the weight and the dimensions and how you solve certain things. And until you learn the game, these people are con artists. They're ripping you off. They're literally trying to steal your product and they could care less that they didn't have any innovation behind it. They just want to copycat you.
And they're doing it with a smile on their face too.
100%.
Disguised as someone who's actually interested in purchasing your product. Now, whether they actually buy your product or not, because I think some of it is they might buy it just so they can deconstruct it and recreate it, or two, just to snap photos to say, hey, look, let's see if our guys can do this.
Yeah. A great example is the Nautilus glute drive. So I launched that in 2018, 19. And now you type in glute drive and there's literally 10 different types of machines and they don't even change the name, like to come up with their own original name. They just call it the Joe Bob glute drive. And, they're being made out of some guy's garage in Sacramento, California or wherever. And so our legal team at Nautilus has to go after them and send cease and desist letters. But if you don't have a legal team, it's a lot harder. So a huge expense for me is the legal. Another expense for me is prototyping because you start out with a very crude model. Sometimes I build stuff out of wood and PVC piping and glue just to test it and to prove that it works. And then you need to get serious. And then if it works, you build a higher end model and you test it. And then you realize, all right, I need a little specialty parts on here. So you build another model. And by the third prototype, you're ready to go. oh, you're just getting started. Now you need like a serious development team that can do computer aided design, that can get the specs down and start really creating a reproducible production level prototype. Once you get, and by the way, I just did this. So 3 prototypes in, I got the 4th prototype. I just went and tested it in Minnesota. This is from a new product that's coming out next year. I just tested it and it's a great product. It's 85% of the way there, but it's not 95%, right? We can launch at 95%. It's never perfect, but 85%, it's not ready. So we had to make some tweaks. Well, you got to make tweaks. That means they have to do more computer aided design. They have to send those designs to Asia. Asia has to reproduce those parts, make another prototype, ship it back to America, which can take, that process could take 4 to 6 weeks. Then I have to fly back out to Minnesota. I have to retest it. Then we have to, hopefully there's not many more tweaks. Hopefully we're close. Then we have to sign off on the prototype. They would have to create tools, which means when you go into production on a unique product, they're not pulling stuff off the shelf. They have to make each piece, and each piece needs kind of a tool or a mold or a jig to create the piece. So you have to make tools. That could take 45 to 60 days. Then you have to go into production. That could take 45 to 60 days to make 300 to 500 units. Then they have to ship them back to America. That could take 45 to 60 days. Then you have to warehouse them and have, be ready to launch. But, right there, just in that process, we're looking at 6 to 9 months.
I was going to say, I was going to say this for tips from the pro, but, what is in your experience, obviously, because you've made multiple products, what is a typical timeline? Like, obviously it's going to depend, but based on your experience for the types of products that you've created, what's the usual? Is it 6 to 9 months from concept to actually being able to potentially put it on sale?
No, this is somewhat depressing. So sit down, brace yourself if you're a solopreneur. Again, this is for a hard good, but a lot of us have ideas for in the product space. The fastest I've done a product was just over a year. And that was, I had a team, we had professional designers and developers, and I had a couple people that were helping me. That was actually the GolfForever swing trainer. And we created, in my opinion, a tremendous product. It is just phenomenal. For under $200, it's the best product I've ever created. Now, that's the fastest. The slowest it's been, I'm at 4 years on this glute slide, which is a brand new product that I just mentioned that's hopefully going to launch next fall, which probably will be closer to the 5-year mark. Now, granted, we had COVID in there and that really derailed. Most of you might remember the supply chain issues during COVID. You couldn't get, toilet paper and this and that. Well, China, a lot of their factories and plants just completely shut down. And that doesn't mean that they shut down for 9 months and then the 9-month and 1 day hits and they're just back up and running. It means that the employees are trickling back in. They're backlogged for months on other products. They have new orders coming in. For instance, the dumbbell industry over COVID just exploded. I think it went up 1,000%. So now if you're an equipment manufacturer and let's say you're making one of my products and then you're also making dumbbells for Nautilus and the Nautilus order from dumbbells comes in and they want 250,000 units. Are you going to focus on that product or are you going to focus on mine that I want 500 units? They're going to tell me to piss off and they're going to make the dumbbell. So COVID just totally derailed everything. But so 4 to 5 years it could take to launch a product. I don't think that's normal. I think somewhere in the 2-year range. Remember, you got patents, you got the website, you got content, you got prototyping, you got tooling, you got manufacturing, you got, warehousing and all that stuff. It takes time. And that's why being an entrepreneur, it's a great test of your patience and your discipline and your dedication. And some of that, in a way, it's almost like a prize fighter, right? Let's say you're, hopefully there's some martial arts fans or boxing fans, or at least you understand high level athletics. If you're a prize fighter, you don't fight for a title your second year of training. Maybe you turn pro after 5 years and you have 1 or 2 fights and you're fighting lower level opposition. And then the next year you step it up a little bit more. And then the following year, you're starting to get some decent fights. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years into it, then you're fighting top level contenders at a 10-round fight, or for mixed martial arts, maybe a 3-round fight.
3 to 5
Yeah,
round fights. Yeah.
5-round fight for a title fight. But the point is, you're developing as you go. And most people, especially in this day and age, especially if you're under, I don't know, 35 years old, 40 years old, most people in their minds, they think, oh, I'm just going to have a YouTube channel, or I'm just going to get into gaming, or I'm just going to launch something overnight and it's going to be a success. And it just doesn't work that way.
So where can people find you? How can they reach out to you, Pete?
Well, I'm at Pete Holman 1, the number 1, Holman, Pete Holman 1 on Instagram and Twitter, I'm sorry, is it Threads now?
X.
And I'm at X. Yeah, sorry, man. See what I'm saying about social media? How hard it is. And then I'm at Pete Holman on Facebook. I've got a couple different channels there. But yeah, I'm also at ph1performance.com. All my information is at ph1performance.com. And you can learn a little bit more about me on that website.
All right, Pete, it was awesome to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, brother. All the best.
Hey, you, do you need a voiceover? Well, look no farther. Northway Capital Group has your answer. Commercials and explainer videos, AVR and voicemail, health and wellness, corporate training and e-learning, announcements, documentaries, and biography. Contact us on social media or email us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to the SME Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.